Alright, so I've had some people ask me about these oil can guitars, more specifically how to make them. This one is nearly finished up. So I figured I'd do a video just going over how I put these together. It's probably going to be more of a what not to do, maybe. But no, there's plenty of ways to make these, but I'm gonna make one for myself with this shell can. I really like it. So I figured it's probably time to do a video, show people how to make them. Yeah, first things first is just laying everything out. It's surprising how much you can mess up by not doing this. So we'll get this one out of the way. That'll be on the website soon, that. So yeah, first things first, just sort of laying everything out. So we've got the top, like the guitar. So this is a bit of brass. I've gone into more details about how I've made this, and I'll pop that in as well, so people will know. We've got this rusty tone volume knob that I'm going to try and fit on here, and then aged chrome surface humbucker. You can kind of see that. Like, again, video on how I did that will be included as we go along. Yeah, so what was I saying? Yeah, layout. So I know that I want this to be a 24-inch scale, so I like to measure out the headstock. Now, generally speaking, I go for about 5 inches for the headstock. So we'll mark that up there. Now I'm going to go for a headstock that I've been using. It's off a Dan Electro type guitar. And that is just big enough. So that's all good. So next up, fretboard. I got a special fretboard. So the neck is Sapele. You can kind of see a thing for this is make sure it's straight as well. Same goes for the grain. With this, I've had some that's been like dead wavy, that I thought looked really cool, and then within a couple of weeks, it's gone like all over the shop. Yeah, but the fretboard is this Indian, kind of see that, Indian rosewood, really nice. So what I like to do is match it up to where we marked the end and get an idea of where the nut's going to go. So going to be using these brass bolts. I think it's an M5. Double check. Yeah, M5. So I'll put the fretboard on the end, so where that line is. So once that's the nuts marked out, I'll take a pick, scale length. Now, I recommend using a steel rule, not like a tape measure out, because it's dead fucking awkward, man. So we'll line that up, and you can see. So that's where our end of our fretboard is, and then just sort of in between there, I'll go for where the nut's going to be and where the strings are going to go over and get pulled down. So I know with these builds that usually I go for 23-inch scale, but I don't like that. The spacing's a little bit too short for me. I prefer the 24-inch scale. And actually looking at this now, it's more for like balancing and stuff. So we'll mark out 24. And I did have a straight edge somewhere. There we go. So the other thing I'll do once we've marked out the 24 inches, right, 24, which sounds mental, but it's so easy to get it building these, forgetting what you've done. Because I've just said about making these 23-inch scale, I guarantee what I'd do if I didn't write that on is I'd make it all up and then mark 23-inch on the fretboard, and then it's just a pain. So once that's all marked up, what you want to do is pick where you want the bridge to sit. So I've got like a box of these sort of dummy bridges to go. So I, for the longest time, made the biggest mistake of putting bridges sort of like here, whether it was on these or cigar box guitars, and it is awkward to play. Like the more I started playing, the more I realised that is dead awkward. So I prefer to move up to about a third. Now, admittedly, this is somewhere closer to halfway, right? But because of the decal on the top, I think that's where I want the bridge to sort of sit. Now, it's gonna move because it's a floating bridge, so it might go a little bit further back, but a little bit further forward. It's usually always back. But essentially, you want to line up that 24-inch mark with where you want that to sit. So I'm going to line that up. I'm going to stick this on as well, just so I get a better visual. Then I'll mark the base and the front, basically, of where the neck's gonna sit. So it's important with the front. So again, it's just stuff to consider. So there's like a little ridge. So if I was to mark to the inside of this, I know that neck with the fretboard on isn't going to go past that. Does that make sense? So I need to mark in front of this notch, because if the fretboard goes further to say like this bit, it's going to just be out a little bit. It's just stuff for measuring. So we'll line this up, and then we will mark that. So let's mark the end. Yeah, sort of eyeballing it. So there, and let's mark that front bit like I just said. So do your little notch and then mark it up. So I like to just realign everything back up to them marks that I've just made. We'll get everything back on so we can sort of see where stuff's. I still have no idea how I'm going to fit volume and tone in here, but we'll see. And then tailpiece, and then I'll put the bridge on as well. So actually, that's kind of worked out I'll get a bit of a close-up so you can see. Alright, so a little bit closer you can kind of see, but essentially everything's on there. Given the right things, right measurements. So I'll move that back. I'll move you back to the, there. So once you're happy with how that lays out, get your fretboard, light on the top. I was really hoping that I'll have enough left over to make a matching bridge for this, and I think we just about will. So I'm going to mark where can ends on this front bit. I think we'll have enough for a bridge. I think it's maybe thick enough. I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably end up using the Sapele so it matches the neck. So, something of note now. Once you've got like everything laid out, if you move this back or forward by any point, you got to remember where we do the nut, where that's going to go. If you start moving that back again that way, that'll move your bridge placement back as well, and obviously you don't want to move it back miles. This all sounds daft, but like it's all stuff I've done before. Yeah, so you want to keep that as to where you've laid it all out, so there's no issues. What was the next thing? I think the next bit actually was, so I've gone over the measurements template. So I've done these like maple wings. When I do stuff like this, I always write on like glue, right? So I remember to glue them sides in. So if you don't, you'll glue the wrong side in or whatever. It's more for the grain and the straightness as well. So really now, everything's laid out, measured out. It's time to measure again and then cut it once. But that's sort of general layout of what we're looking for. We'll do a quick flyover. Yeah, so just so you can see it close up. So at the headstock, where we have this sort of template. This is sort of like the dry fit that I like to do, so don't forget. So we have these locking tuners for this one. So this is where the fretboard ends. That's the nut where the bolt's going to go, but obviously the fretboard will be on top. And then we're shimming all the way along. That's where the fretboard needs to end. Then you go further. You can kind of see that sort of, see there, bridge 24, so don't forget. And then the end. So we'll see that all together. Line it all up. We've lined the top up, so we know that everything's going to fit. So let's get to cutting. So now we've got a heel piece as well. Yeah, so that's where the front was marked. I'm going to draw the heel in here generally speaking, I go about 2 inches out, so I've got enough to cut back in. So I'm going to rip the fretboard down. You want a little bit of overhang either side because I'll plane it and neaten it up. So measured it out, got the fence up, and I'll pick the side that's worse, and we've got a little hole there, so we'll just trim it on that side and then chop the end where we were. So we've got everything laid out and cut down, so we've got the heel, fretboard, and headstock wings for this template. So next I'm going to glue everything, but because it's cold, wet and everything else in Cumbria, I'm going to glue it up inside. Yeah. Where I've found for gluing the heel to the body fretboard as well without it slipping everywhere is if you use these sort of panel pins, I think they're called panel pins, just bang them in. So bang them in, snip them off, so we've just got a little bit. A little bit sticking out, you kind of see. So that way when you clamp it and glue it together, it will just press into the wood enough to hold it, but it's not gonna slide or whatever else. It's just a lot easier. But I'm gonna go do that inside because it's warm. Alright, so I've messed up. So I've done things in the wrong order. Usually I would do the holes for the headstock, for the tuning pegs, before gluing the heel and everything else, just because you've got like a nice flat piece of wood to just work with. It's just easy, you're not going to like accidentally damage your fretboard or anything. So just as a quick note, but because I'm going to be adding wings like to the sides, I'm going to trim the fretboard now because it'll just save a load of pain later. So but this is what I was saying about having like extra on the sides. It's so easy just to trim up with a plane like by hand than it is to like have it cut to the exact width and try and, you know, glue it on straight. You'll never get it. I just hope it's sharp, because I haven't sharpened it yet. I usually do over winter. The reason I'm coming back the other way is that the grain down here is all over the place, so it was just tearing out some of the wood. You kind of see it actually here, see if you can see it. So, because it's going to be really difficult, but See how like that's all sort of rough, but then the rest of this now is smooth. So I've left just enough to glide over that again and neaten that side up, but this side was all like that, so just something to watch out for. Cool, so the rest I can neaten up with sanding, but I have my plane set up to only take off like a very, very thin amount. I prefer taking little bits than like big chunks. These are good for getting your fire going in winter. So, on a different note, this Indian rosewood, really nice. Got a little bit of tear out on that side, but I think I can neaten that up. Yeah, the colour, I think it's going to come up really well. Look at all the purple shenanigans, it's really cool. Right, time to get the headstock glued on. So, back on a different day with the neck finish now, all glued up. As I said before, I made the mistake of not doing the headstock stuff first, but we'll work around it. So now we've got the wings. So I'm going to use this template to draw out a rough outline. I'm going to do it near the top there, and we'll take it from there. So we'll get to cutting. So because it can be hard to see on here, I'm going to put some tape on, then draw the template on top, just so it's a little bit easier to see. Right, so it's kind of hard to see in that light, but you can see we've got the line on here. Wings are maple, so I'm not looking forward to this because I know that this is getting blunt, but ignore what I said. Use pen. Right, so got the basic shape done. Sanded it to just a rough idea. This will all be fixed up. So now I've done what I should have done in the first bit when it was just a stick of wood. I marked where on the tuning pegs to go. So when you're doing something like wings, just remember where the actual, tuning bit sticks out, because if it was too far in, it'd be catching on the side. So I measured it out. Then I'm going to measure how far down I need to go. Where's the best way? Here. So where you can see, so I'm going to use a Forstner bit to drill a hole in the top, big hole, for this to sit in. It'll be a 20mm, and yeah, we'll get to doing that, but measure it twice. So the reason I use the Forstner bit is I get left with this nice centerpiece to drill the 10mm hole for the tuning pegs to go through. It's actually 16mm, this one. I'm just going to put this a little bit deeper. A quick one. Now, I'm pretty sure these are 10mm, but I'm going to use a bit of scrap wood and double check. So with this, don't go all the way through, because you don't want the back to like tear out and split. So when you're using a brand point bit, just go through enough to get that little point through the other side, and then just do the back. So we're nice and clean. Now sanding. So I'm at the point where I'll recheck all the measurements because you don't want to mess it up now. So this is a 24-inch scale. I've marked on here where the bridge is going to go. So I'm going to measure it again. You can kind of see 24 just at that end there. So I'll just put the nut there. Do a little mark either side so I get an idea. Some form of straight edge. Nice. So to cut the slot, I'm going to use my old fret saw. You can see this straight edge because I don't mind the saw catching it. And yeah, now this is an M5 bolt, so I'm going to roughly go 3mm down for the groove, so we'll have about 2mm above. It's all, I just kind of guess it, but basically if you leave it shorter you can always file out more, so you can never add more back in there. It's not true, you can, but so to notch the nut slot, this is a mortise chisel, like just a thin chisel basically. So yeah, I need a little bit of a hammer though. If I go to chisel this out now, it might flake and break out, but if I do another sort of slot in the middle, like saw in the middle, it'd be a lot easier. And file it. So kind of see here, this knot way too loose, so I could fill it with sawdust and sort of refile it, but I'm just going to use a bigger bolt. But I'm just going to have to cut it a little bit deeper because at least that's a snugger fit. If it's not, it will just be, the tension should hold that in, but it's just more room for error. So we'll fix it now. So it's still probably a little bit too high, but I can always file it once I get the strings on, but you can see the difference. So this is the bigger bolt, and this was the original one. You can kind of see it's a bit wobbly. There we go. When it comes to marking out bits of the neck before carving, I like to sort of get an idea of where your thumb's going to be, right, for hitting certain bits. It's really important. Like when I first started building, I didn't really play, and it meant that some of the guitars weren't as playable as I'd like. So it's somewhere around there, so I'll mark that out. So we've marked our end. Then I like to use one of these to do a line all the way down the middle. So we'll do that. So Got a line down the middle now. And then I'll do like a sort of curve here, just to give myself an idea of like where to carve in with the, where is it? This curved file. So, there we go, all marked out. It just helps when you get into sort of hand carving to visualise where bits of the neck and that are. So now we get to the therapeutic bit. So to start with carving, I use Shinto. Anyway, you know them if you're doing this thing, but I'll just start with the coarse side and start just cutting in, just to give myself the sort of entry point. Now I like to leave a little bit at the top where we drew out, so when I come in with the curve file, I've got a little bit of meat on the wood. Just so you can see where coming with the curve file there. So now I'm going to take the meat off the top and then I'll start getting the rest of it shaped. After roughing it out with the sort of coarse side, I use the fine side just to neaten it up. So to get a bit more of a curve, I'll then use a spoke shave, because I don't think, some wood it's better than others, but I think with Sapele it'll be okay. That did work, just rounded it out. So I got one more trick. So this is a sanding belt, I think it was 120 grit. Put gaffer tape on the back and then I'll just rub up and down just to further round it off. Obviously it's really rough, but you can see. So I'm going to use that portable sander just to neaten up these curved bits. But as you can see, for the main neck, they're quite nice already. I might do a little bit more up here because it's a little bit flat. Actually, it might be alright. I might be able just to sand that out. But yeah, so we'll use that portable sander now. So after all the sanding and like wet sanding now, we've got sort of the, I've still got hand sand stuff, not the finished sort of neck now, so you can kind of see how much neater that heel is. It's not perfect, but I never really shoot for perfect, you know, it's an instrument made in a shed, but it's looking good.